everybody. I'm Luxcana from Luxury Gaming, and I'm here with...
Braden, hello. I'm a Lorcana player, and I made the top 32 at the Challenge in Dallas.
That's awesome. What deck colors did you play?
I am playing Emerald Steel, so I'm playing the popular discard deck, the one that is about to get errated. So thought I'd go for one last tournament and see how I could do.
One last hurrah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's see the deck.
All right, so I have 4 Diablos. This is obviously your shift target. I've seen a couple people play 3, but I think you definitely want 4. I would say a lot of times your mulligan is literally just keeping one copy of this card and sending everything back. Knowing what your opponent has in their starting hand lets you play out the entire game knowing exactly what they're going to do, and that's a pretty huge advantage.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah, exactly. And the Diablo that shifts onto it is so powerful that I think it's totally necessary, or not necessary, but it's definitely worth it to just shove everything back and try to hit the next 7. All right. Next up we have the 1-drop Flynn. This card is a shift target for the 4-drop Flynn that's uninkable. The cool thing about this is it lets you set up turns where you play this first, and then the following turn you play the Flynn and you immediately shift with it. The other thing is you play this on turn 1, and on turn 2 you can shift and then sing Let the Storm Rage on, or you can attack an exerted Diablo, so that's also really powerful. So this is actually the card that made me get into Emerald Steel. I was watching the Rat play in Chicago, and he played this, and then the following turn top deck Flynn, and then played it and attached a Diablo, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm hooked. That seems like such a fun time. All right. Next up, I have 3 Robin Hood. 3 is actually kind of unique. This card's
4.
Yeah. Usually you play 4, but I had to find room somewhere, and I found that Robin Hood is the card that is the most situational and the one I'm least likely to want to have in my starting hand, but it's so powerful as a shift target that I still play 3. An important thing to know about this card is it's a 2-2, and sometimes this deck has a hard time putting out a 2-2 early enough to turn off a Flynn. The Flynn that gains 3 lore every turn in red-purple. However, they shouldn't really be playing that card against you, but sometimes they do, and you've got to have the 2-2 to check it. So, next up is Hidden Cove. We have 2 copies of this card. A lot of Greenstone mirrors in other matchups are about getting to a point where you're both top decking and you're just drawing your Robin Hoods, your Diablos, the 1-drops or the shift targets. And if your stuff is coming in and is more powerful than their stuff because you have a Hidden Cove in play, that's going to be winning you the game. But on top of that, it means that they have to take a whole turn off to kill your Hidden Cove sometimes, and then you can just swing back and kill all their stuff. And if they can't do that, they really can't quest either because your stuff is going to eat it and then survive because you have a Hidden Cove. So it lets you quest for free, and then if they can't kill the Hidden Cove in one turn, you just keep questing for free forever. So it's really powerful. Also, protects your Diablo from Brawl, so sometimes you shift Diablo, and on turn 2, instead of playing Bucky, you play Hidden Cove and attach it. So there's a lot of stuff there.
Awesome.
Cool. We have 4 Bucky, pretty self-explanatory. A lot of people say the deck is about mulliganing for Bucky.
Yeah, that's what I was going to wonder.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's quite true, but it is pretty close to true. Usually you want something like Hidden Cove, Bucky, maybe an Ursula to clear the way for Bucky or for Diablo. But Bucky on 2 is really powerful, and you definitely don't want to mulligan it away. I would say I'm really happy to throw 7 cards back or 6 cards back, but it's pretty unlikely that Bucky's going to be one of those cards unless it's a very strange matchup where I just don't think Bucky's very good, but there really aren't that many of those. Amber Steel is really the only one where I would ink Bucky no matter what, or I would play, a lot of times against Amber Steel, I want to play Bucky on turn 5 where I play a Bucky and then a Diablo so I can get the shift trigger. But on turn 2, they might just grab your swords with a shift like Queen or something, and so it's not that good.
Okay.
So, just trying to offer some unique things about Bucky.
No, yes. Turn 5 was very interesting. I haven't heard that yet.
Ursula, this card's really good on turn 2, but also it's really good on turns 4, 5, and 6. A lot of times against Red Purple, on turn 2, you want to take their friends on the other side, or against Green Steel, you want to take the thing they're going to discard to shift their Diablo. So
they grab your swords.
Yeah. I had a game this weekend where my opponent played a Diablo on turn 1, and then they didn't shift because usually people don't think to do that. But then on turn 2, I Ursula'd them and took their only song, so they couldn't shift, and the game was basically over. So This card has a ton of utility in basically every matchup. Songs are really powerful, so every deck plays songs. 4 Sun Chill. Sometimes you play 3. I'm playing 4 because I'm on Prince John. A bit of a spoiler, but once you're on Prince John, you have to play 4 Sun Chill. So this card's really powerful. Making your opponent discard a card is really good. The last card they discard is usually the most powerful card, so making them discard a card when they have 5 cards in hand isn't very useful. But if they have 2 cards in hand, making them discard a card is actually very useful because they might have to make a really tough decision. And when your opponent's making tough decisions, they might make mistakes. And so Sun Chill can be a card that makes your opponent make mistakes, which is a pretty huge deal.
And it gives you the upper hand in a matchup.
Yeah. for sure. Baboom, one Baboom, it is really good against Amber Steel, and it's really good against Emerald Steel. It doesn't get hit by Ursula, which is really important, and it's a way for you to get back into the game when you're on the draw in games that you basically never would otherwise. And it's pretty efficient and sinkable. So, and it hits location. Sometimes you get in a situation where you have like a hidden cove with an Ursula and a Diablo on it, and you attack a castle for 5, and the Baboom can like finish off the castle. It's a pretty common situation where 5 damage is not enough.
It can also get rid of like the Cinderella too if it's on the field, like the baby Cinderella, so they can't even sing. So that sets them back turns as well.
Yeah, when you're on the draw, it's really good because it catches you up. But on the play, it's oppressive sometimes because they're really not expecting you to. For example, you might have a Strength of a Raging Fire and you don't have a 2-drop to play, but you have Shift Diablo, so you can like shift it and you can sing, but you only deal 1 damage, and then you can discard the Strength instead, and then just play Baboom on their Diablo or Cinderella, and that'll like win you the game. So it's a really powerful card. A lot of people want to cut it because it's really hard to find room in this deck, but I just think it's a card you got to place because you got to respect your opponents. This card's crazy. Strength of Raging Fire. It's just bananas. It's so good. It's inkable.
Especially if you go wide.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I guess a really big thing to think about is a lot of times Green Steel players will throw away their characters. So if you have a 2/2 and they have a 2/2 and they quest for 2, you just trade and take the trade. But with Strength of Raging Fire in your deck, you need to think about like the key numbers of characters you have in play, and sometimes they get a free quest that you have to like let them have it because you know that the next turn you need to have 5 things in play to kill the Tinkerbell they play, and so that's a part of Strength of Raging Fire that isn't obvious, and you might lose games that you might even not even notice you lost because you just made a quest that wasn't free, or you traded with something that they offered and it actually wasn't to your advantage,
or you did this like 1 turn too early because you didn't have enough characters.
Yeah, exactly. Or exactly. So Ursula copies that card. Ursula's crazy. I mean, she has 3 toughness, and so, or willpower. I think that's the right one. So she survives Grab Your Sword, and so against Blue Steel, against Amber Steel, she's just the best, like one of the best cards in that matchup. And then she's also really good in the Emerald Steel mirror because if you can keep their stuff off the board early, she survives Strength of Raging Fire and let the Storm Rage on. So, like, for example, I mentioned Strength of Raging Fire. You want to keep your stuff in play. You might also want to kill your opponent's stuff so that if they have a strength, they can't kill your stuff. So she's really good if you're like keeping that stuff in mind, and she just creates broken boards that you can easily win the game with.
Even if you sing with her and you sudden chill, that they lose 2 cards that time.
Yeah, exactly. With Prince John is a very good plan. You'll draw 2 cards. It's crazy. Aladdin. This card's kind of a workhorse. A 3/3 is really good against red purple. A Floodborn is really good with Bucky, and destroying items is very powerful against Blue Steel. So it just kind of does everything. The little trick that this card has that people don't often realize is when you're playing against Amber Steel or Blue Steel, it does have a shift cost, which is discarding a location. And we do play locations. We have 2 locations in our deck, and there will be games, and it has happened to me before, I've seen it happen to other people, where you need to shift the Aladdin to get an additional Bucky trigger, and it's not obvious that that's there a lot of the time, but when you draw 14 cards with Diablo, it's not always hard to have that happen. So if you see like a quarter of your deck, you're going to get in that situation. So with Storm Rage on, we talked about how crazy Strength is. This card's also crazy. I don't have a lot to say. It draws you 2 cards when you play with Ursula. It's really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Diablo, this card's crazy. Also, it's like one of our best shift cards. It sings all of our powerful songs. It's uninkable, which kind of sucks. But it's a free shift, and that's crazy, right?
Yeah. Would you ever find yourself wanting to ink that? No.
Yeah.
You're always going to want to play it.
I did have a situation in my top 64 match where I lost a game because Diablo wasn't inkable, but I think I deserved that one. I had 2 Diablos in my hand, and it was still pretty close.
Oh.
So, yeah.
2 Diablos.
Yeah, exactly. Prince John. So I have 2 Prince Johns. This card is for the red-purple matchup, but also helps against red-blue and blue steel. This card with Hidden Cove is crazy. Like, when you get a Prince John, a Hidden Cove, and it's a 2/3 with Ward, and it quests for 2, and it draws you cards, it's bananas.
Why only 2?
What's that?
Why only 2?
Oh, why only 2? It's uninkable. We have a lot of uninkables. This deck is really low to the ground and wants to be able. So, like, philosophically, we have these 4 Diablo in our deck that let her look at our opponent's hand.
Yes.
We get to see what's in their hand, and we get to change what our game plan is based off what we see.
Okay.
And so having a lot of inkables means that we're very flexible in the early game and can make different choices, very early on. And having a lot of uninkables, even 14, is like constricts those options. And so playing more uninkables is pretty costly. So 2 is the most we can fit in, and also it's kind of awkward in the green steel mirror. Imagine they have a Diablo, and you draw a card in your turn, then they draw a card, and then you can make them discard another card, but then they draw a card again. And so there's just some awkwardness there. You can skip the draw. It is a May, but it's just awkward. I think 2 is enough, but there are people who play 4. It's enough that you see it against red-purple, and that's really, you just want to see it in that matchup. You can mulligan for it. We have 3 Flynns, which is more than a lot of people play. A lot of people play 2, but this is maybe, it's up there with like Diablo in terms of power level. It quests for 4 super often, and when it quests for 4, it's crazy. Like, if you have 2 Flynns in play and your opponent has no cards in hand, the game ends in like 3 turns. It's pretty much immediate.
Yeah.
This has shift. I mentioned it already. It sings songs. It is really powerful. After
it's evasive. I don't know if you
worked
that out.
Yeah, evasive is crazy. Final thing, it has shift too. So on turn 6, sometimes you go like play Flynn, shift Flynn. So you put the same Flynn you play a Flynn and then you shift another Flynn on top of it. And if you have like 2 Buckies in play, that can be worth it. Or if they have like exactly 2 cards in hand and you're just like, I need them to have no cards in hand, that is like an option that comes up. The really common line I really like is you go Flynn on 1, Bucky on 2, Prince John on 3, play another Bucky, and then shift Flynn. And that makes them discard 2 cards, and you draw 2 cards, which is crazy. All right, Jafar. This card breaks combat a lot, so it's harder to kind of explain without just being there. But a lot of times you get in these situations where if they quest with something, you can't attack it because it opens up something else. And this creates situations where if they quest, you get to draw a card, and then you kind of come ahead out of that situation. But it also means, like, if you have a Prince John that quests for 2, you quest for 2, and they have, like, a Robin Hood, they can't really challenge your Prince John. I meant, like, the 1-mana 2/2. They can't really challenge the Prince John because then you're going to attack their Robin Hood, and you'll draw a card, and that might be that kind of might break up the game in a way. Like, if you have an Ursula in play, getting a second look at a song or something like that. Yeah, Robin Hood's just crazy. This card's, I mean, I'm sure we all remember when it came out. We're like, wow, it's a shift 3, and it's a 3/6, and it quests for 2, and you draw a card when it dies, and you gain 2 lore when you challenge. It just does everything. It's a great top deck. I don't like it in my starting hand usually. I don't like shifting it very often, but I think that's like more about me being risk averse. I don't like it when they kill my 2-drop Robin Hood, and like this whole game plan I've been working towards just sort of falls apart. I like playing a bit more. I like doing stuff a little bit more powerful, or just playing a little bit more reactively or less. I don't like getting opened up to blowouts, and it feels like Robin Hood is a card that when you lean on it really hard, you get opened up to blowouts. But right, Beast. This card's also a Floodborn. Just a big reminder, it's kind of crazy this card's a Floodborn. You can shift it for 3. It does come up sort of like Flynn, where you just shift onto a Beast to make them discard cards. Yeah, it's just crazy good.
And you get to draw a card if it has no damage.
Yeah, and a lot of times there are these situations where your opponent has like a castle in play, and they have like some little guy, and they can't really quest with the little guy because Beast will then get damage on it and then just kill the castle. So there's like some cool game there. It sings this other card. We're going to talk about Bruno. Yeah, it's a cool card. I would say quest with it more often than you think you're supposed to, because it does quest for 2, and that's going to be a huge deal. Sometimes you're in situations where your opponent really can't challenge it, and even if they do challenge it, like it lives because it's a 3/5. So, yeah. And then we don't talk about Bruno. You could play a Long Game Zeus, but I'm playing Prince John, so my uninkable count really can't go much higher. So this card makes them discard a card, which is good with Prince John still, and it answers Tamatoas, Beasts, Tinkerbells, Medusas, that sort of card. So that's everything.
Do you have any shout-outs for social media you want to?
Yeah, sure. Follow me on Twitter at BradenMTG, and thanks for having me.
Okay, thanks, guys.